So we're going to start out looking at how Fictionary helps with characters. So having a list of your characters on a scene-by-scene basis gives a specific method for evaluating how you're using the characters, and it shows you when you need to evaluate a scene or revise a scene, sorry. And knowing who is in each scene helps you control how the reader experiences not only the scene, but the entire story. So to see who's in a scene, you click the view button and you get a list here. And so we've got Alyssa, Katie, Nick, Olivia, and Serafina. So in this scene, Nick is actually dead. So he's not a character in the scene, but he is mentioned. And if you think of, so I just click the little arrow there and he moves over to mentioned. If you think of characters in a play, the characters on the stage are in the scene. And the ones they talk about and just mention are the characters mentioned. And so you can delineate that way. And the only difference here is only the characters that are in the scene show up in the character insights. And I'll show you what that means in a minute. The other thing you can do here is you can add characters to a scene. So you just click add, select a character. Let's just add Bandit because he's convenient. Bandit shows up in the scene. And that way, as you're revising and you add new characters, you can also add them to the scene and the insights stay up to date. So really with this, you know it's time to revise a scene if there's too many characters in a scene, which might confuse a reader. If a character that's introduced has too much or too little detail. If characters appear or disappear without warning, and what I mean there is sometimes a scene is written and all of a sudden a character, Bob, will start talking, but the reader doesn't know that that character's in the scene. These are critical things. The other critical thing is that the protagonist must be in all the key story arc scenes, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And when you're looking at the list, you want to make sure that the names are not confusing. So say you had a character Alyssa and a character Alice, very similar names. And by seeing them here in one place, you can go, oh, that's no good. I got to rename one of them. Okay, so we'll go to our character insights where I went visualize and then I clicked character insight. This is the characters per scene insight. So here, what we're doing, it's showing you how many characters are in each scene. And so really this is important because you don't want the readers to flip or click pages to find out who a character is. And this can happen if there's too many characters in the scene. And in this insight, you can scroll across and look for places where there's too many characters. So scene 25 has 11, scene 33 is getting a bit up there. So you want to maybe start looking at those scenes. So if we then go back to the evaluate page and we look at scene 25, which is here, we can then look at who's in this scene. And you can see it's quite a bit. So the first thing we know is Nick is dead, so he's not actually in the scene, and that removes one character altogether. But usually what I do here is I would review the scene and I look at how many characters actually need to be in this scene. And are there any that could go? Are there any that are performing the same function? And this is a good place to indicate that perhaps two characters could be merged into one. The fewer the characters there are, the more time there is to develop each character and the more time the reader has to connect with each character. So it's important to do that. So after revising, I would go back to the scenes per character report and have a look at, does it look better or not? Okay, so the scenes per character insight shows you the number of scenes each character is in. So that's this number up here. And it also shows you the order they appear in the story. So Katie is the first character, Serafina the second, and so on. And here it's showing us that Serafina has the most number of scenes. So the max scenes is 88. Serafina has the most, and she's the protagonist. So that's a really good thing. Nick's number will reduce as we go through and we move him over into the characters mentioned, or we can just leave him here because we want to see he's the guy that's killed in this book. Is he in there enough to remind the reader? So you can look at it two ways. This is also helpful when you're looking at how a character is introduced, how much detail do you give that character? For example, so a major character should have more description, more backstory than a minor character. And the character entry is the first time a character appears in a novel. And the character entry is the beginning of the character's arc. And when they exit, it's the end of the arc. And so that means, for a minor character, their character arc is very short. So one of the things that you can do with this insight is look at characters who are only in one scene. So if we look over here at Janet as the first one who's only in one scene, then I want to go back to the only scene that she's in and have a look at, is there any way I can revise this? Do I need to use her or not? So I want to look at, did I describe her in as little detail as possible so that the reader's not confused, but they get that she's there. And to do that, we go to the cast of characters page. And on the cast of characters page, I'll just deselect these two. We'll go and find Janet. Okay, so here's Janet. And what we can do is view her first scene. So Janet, I know this because I've read the scene, is down at the bottom here. And it's the assistant. And so she appears once. We mention her name once, and that's it. And so really the way to revise this scene is she doesn't even need to be in it. She's never in a scene again. She doesn't need to be named like she is here. No thanks, Janet. Well, it doesn't matter. So the two options are here, just remove the name or take her out altogether because she's